Well, welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Wraparound. And as you guys probably listened to last week's, it was our Stanley Cup Finals preview. And now some games have been played. So this one's kind of our, I guess, special Stanley Cup Final episode. So no longer preview, it's actually the final. So
Wouldn't it have been nice if they could have finished this series off before this
and
episode?
it would have been perfect. I mean, it wouldn't have been perfect for Alessia, but it would have been perfect for the show's timing.
Really, it would have made our job so much easier.
Just talk about how everything ended, what went wrong, what went right. But no, here we are. The Habs did win the game 4 in Montreal. They live another day and they'll be playing Tampa maybe tomorrow, which will be the 7th. So probably the day that you guys are listening to this. Maybe not, because the girls are telling me that there is a hurricane warning in Tampa Bay.
The Wraparound with Grace, Alessia, and Maryuri.
But yes, we're going to talk about what's been going on, what happened during these first 4 games, if Montreal can, continue. I will say nothing more than that. But we'll talk about it. We're going to get right into it. So I hope you guys enjoy. So yeah, let's get started. First off, I'm going to ask you guys what's been the most upsetting or exciting thing from this series so far.
For me, I'm going to start with upsetting because...
Oh, really?
I'm going to start with upsetting because I think in this series, game 2 was probably the closest game. Well, even in score, you could tell it was the closest game. And there was something in that game that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I guess you can say. And that was Montreal had a 4-on-3, and they decided to play Weber and Gustafsson, and they didn't play Cole Caulfield. And when you're on a 4-on-3, especially against Tampa, and it's crucial to the game, I don't understand why you would play 2 defensemen there. It would have made a huge difference in the game if you had a sole defender, and I wouldn't even say Weber, probably Petrie and Caulfield there. So I think in terms of that game, if there would have been a different decision there, it would have made a huge difference. So, and then I guess exciting was Josh Anderson's overtime goal yesterday. And not only Josh Anderson is a type of player, if you see him in media scrums, he loves to hype up the team. He loves to, talk about the team and how much belief they have. But every time he does that, he always shows up. And that's what I find amazing about that player. So I guess that would be my exciting thing because they finally won a game.
I'll start with exciting because I'm going to piggyback off of that and say it's the same moment for me. And also be very transparent and say that I was camping all weekend and have not seen a single game of this series. I am just getting back to Earth and cell phone service in the past 24 hours. So I think upsetting for me is last week I was talking about how much I was looking forward to this being a real battle of the goalies, a low scoring series, and how I thought it was going to be drawn out for quite a long time. And then we didn't really get that in the first 3 games. Tampa was kind of mopping the floor with the Habs there for a while. So I'd have to say that was probably the most upsetting thing for me, is that I didn't get to hear about, because I wasn't going to see it. I didn't get to hear about those really tough goalie battles in this series so far.
And Grace, you mentioned about, the kind of predictions we made last week and the things you guys were kind of expecting from this series, or, players you thought would kind of be the difference maker for each team. And so kind of going back to those points, and we're going to kind of reevaluate it and see who has been the difference maker for each team. Have your predictions been correct, or have been they wrong? And we'll see, maybe any surprises. And yeah, so let's talk about that.
So last week I kind of switched up Marjorie's question. I'm sorry. Instead of saying who I thought would be the difference maker, I went with what would be the difference maker, and that was Tampa Bay's power play, Montreal's penalty kill. And Tampa Bay has a very strong power play. We've seen that through this series, it's been very successful. But last night, Montreal's penalty kill was very good, especially when Weber took a 4-minute penalty at the end of the third period, which led into overtime. If Montreal didn't kill that penalty with Tampa Bay's power play, the Stanley Cup could have been awarded last night. So that was huge. So that's what I would say is the difference maker, because both have been strong for each team. So special teams. And I kind of mentioned, I think that the young guns for Montreal were definitely going to be a difference maker, and they have Caulfield, Suzuki. KK is now out of the lineup, but we'll get to that in a bit.
You got to ask the question of, is Montreal on repeat? Because this series feels very familiar in different ways, but still very familiar to the first round. Game 4, they picked it up with their penalty kill and with their young guys. And I just want to know, are we headed down the same road? I'm not saying we are. The jinx cloud that hovers over us cannot catch me with these words. I'm just asking the question.
We have to be very careful with the way we phrase certain sentences and the way we say certain things.
Because there's the difference maker for me, I guess, this week is still Montreal's mindset. I think I mentioned that last week, and I highlighted this quote from Ducharme. He says, "It's probably part of our destiny." And that's just like concerning everything that's been going on in this series. And that reminds me of something Marjorie would say.
Stop it.
Like,
I mean, it's actually something I would say.
Wait for the world to give it to you, because that'll be your fate. But I still think that they're hanging on. They're not getting pushed aside. Their mindsets aren't faltering, I don't think. And I think that that's going to be a difference maker for them in this series again.
I 100% agree. I think I mentioned this so many times during the Leafs Habs series, where I said that the Habs had a way different mentality than the Leafs, and that's ultimately what made them win the series. That their mentality was, we can win, instead of let's try not to lose. And so I think if they kind of bring that back again, then I think things can happen. Again, I won't say too much, but I completely agree. And the golden, I guess, question here is kind of the question that we always ask ourselves, or the one that people always kind of seem to bring up when it comes to big series like this, where it's 3-1 or 3-0 or whatever. What changes should each team make in order to either clinch the series or win the cup for Tampa Bay, or to keep going and eventually win the cup for Montreal?
What changes? Montreal needs to be more consistent with their penalty kill, I think, because that's what got them through basically the entirety of the playoffs. And I think that if they keep heading down that train ride, they'll be all right with their killer penalty kill, because that thing's incredible. Tampa, the changes they need to make, I don't really think they need to do anything. Last night, Montreal was just a little bit more on top of their game, but after 4 games, you expect the teams to be a little tired, and Montreal capitalized on that. So I kind of think that Tampa should just keep being Tampa. Kucherov has an insane amount of goals, I think. What stat was I don't remember what stat I was reading earlier, but it like made my jaw drop. I was like, what is Tampa doing here? But yeah, I just think that Tampa's doing really well the way they are. And if they just kind of stick with that, but with a little more energy, I think we'll see it. They can see it through.
Yeah, exactly what Grace said in terms of Tampa. I really don't see anything that they can change. I just think that, like Grace mentioned, Montreal kind of found their game again last night. And I think Tampa's been pretty consistent throughout this entire series. For Montreal, I think last night, them making the move to put in Kulak and Romanov was probably one of their best moves, because Gustafsson, like a guy like Gustafsson, on defense, he's particularly only effective on the power play. So when you're playing 5-on-5, who's eating up his minutes because he's kind of seen as a liability now, and that's Shea Weber and Sherratt. And I think in past series it's worked, but now it's catching up to those 2 defensemen. So I think putting in a young kid like Alexander Romanov and Brett Kulak, who's been pretty well in the regular season, I think that was a great move. So I think they just keep going, riding off of their momentum that they got from last night. And I think those two defensemen should stay in the lineup.
Beautifully said. And as always, we move on to the very highly anticipated question of the week. And since Alessia was talking about young guns, this question has to do with one particular young gun from the Habs. And so my question for you two is, should Ducharme keep Kotkaniemi out for Game 5 as well? Grace, give me your answer.
I'm going to keep it very brief because I think this is Alessia's real moment to shine this entire show. I don't know. I don't know. That's my answer because I think they took him out and they won. Keep him out maybe for another game, but also was it reliant on the fact that Kotkaniemi wasn't in the lineup? No. But I don't know. It's such an interesting thing. I want to know what Alessia thinks about it because I feel like she's got some thoughts.
Insight. Yeah. So Alessia, give us your answer.
Similar to your thoughts, for me, knowing Ducharme and what he's done in these playoffs, he's gonna go with what's been working. And they pulled Kotkaniemi yesterday. They won. I don't see him making any lineup changes from what he put out last night just because it worked. Now, was I for taking him out before last night's game? No, I wasn't for it because I think he's been amazing in the playoffs and he's such a young player. This experience is amazing for him and he hasn't been too bad. I was thinking maybe another guy, potentially a Stahl, they would take out. But the thing is that it's hard to take out Stahl because their fourth line has been incredible. So it's kind of like, you take him out, fine. It worked. So if it worked, I'm expecting Ducharme to keep him out of the lineup, which sucks, but it is what it is.
That's a good point. Like, if you're going to take him out, then take him out. Like, don't go back and forth. That was a good question. Nice, short, and sweet. No conflict. Everybody got an answer for me, and there was at least one answer. Maybe not the yes or no I was really looking for, Grace, but you know what? She gave me one. That's all that matters.
Sometimes you have to adapt. And speaking of adapting, I have a question for Alessia because I feel like we haven't talked about this for so long. I need to know what Alessia's current stance as of 7:12 p.m. on Tuesday, July 6th. What is your stance on Marc Bergevin?
His red suit is very lucky. There's
all
my
right.
stand.
Good answer.
I think his team is exceeding expectations, is what I would say.
That's a high compliment for Marc Bergevin, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
That is, I was really hoping for, a little bit of slander, a little bit of conflict, but I'm glad that you've decided to take the high road, Alessia.
Our sweet girl has grown, Grace. She has grown up. That's the end of this week's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Next week when we're going to be talking to you guys, or maybe sooner than that, depending on how everything goes, you'll hear our thoughts, closing thoughts on the playoffs, on, the whole season in general, what to expect for next season, off season, all that fun stuff. But yeah, stay tuned. Keep up to date with us on all our socials. As I always say, please message us, comment on our videos, leave us likes, leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts, wherever you can leave us a review. We greatly appreciate anything you leave for us. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and we'll talk to you next week.